And Napan has been a long time supporter of the Partnership TMA. Thank you so much, as has the township. Very long-standing members both, and we appreciate the support. So let's jump into the presentation, if we can bring that up. Thanks, Derek. Okay, so the Partnership TMA of Montgomery County, clicking here, all right? Oh, it's not moving.
On the arrow there.
On the arrow. Nope. I'll give you an assist. This technology that we tried yesterday. Okay, so Partnership TMA of Montgomery County is a nonprofit organization. We were established in 1993, and we have a long history within the county and beyond to address transportation issues. Good. Not moving forward. There we go. Come back. Okay, thank you. Oh, great. So as it says here, we collaborate with over 150 public and private partners, and our programs and services focus very specifically around the subjects of travel demand management and transportation options. How we do this, next slide please, is through extensive partnership. And these are just a few of our partners who are local, and I hope you recognize many of the names and organizations there. So we work very strongly in partnership with transportation providers, municipalities, engineers, planners, businesses, and individuals. And we work with county organizations, specifically the Planning Commission, the Workforce Development Board, and Health and Human Services. Okay, so what do we actually do? Well, we've broken this down into two sections to make it hopefully as clear as possible, because it does encompass a lot of elements. We have our travel demand management program, which is geared to employers. We have a big role in supporting the improvement and expansion of biking infrastructure and bike safety within the county. And we look at transportation options for individuals and organizations. We provide direct service through our Montgomery County Transportation Helpline and through travel training. Talk a little bit more about all of those. So let's start with travel demand management, TDM. A lot of acronyms within the world of transportation. So what it is a set of tools and strategies that can be used, as it says on the left here, to address poor air quality, health issues, environmental impacts, climate change, social equity, sustainable living, and smart growth. But it increases access for individuals to get to work sites, to get to essential services, to get to the grocery store and medical appointments. But TDM is an intentional strategy that looks very specifically at the situations of the entities involved. So you all here are employers, right? And your workforce looks very different for each of you. And within that, there are different options and possibilities for your workforce. So the service that we provide is to work with employers and entities to really figure out what could work for them amongst the options available within our county, existing and potential, okay, depending on your specific circumstances. We have access to resources and information, as here, and incentives and grants for funding alternative modes of transportation. Because at the core of this program is to try and encourage people to use alternative transportation means to a single occupancy vehicle. We probably all came here today in our own cars, right? A lot of issues associated with that. I'll talk about that later, but at the heart of the travel demand management program is to get people out of SOVs, if you will, or of alternatives to traveling by single occupancy vehicles. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So this does jump around a little bit, so I apologize, and we can come back to any slide specifically that you're interested in. But you may already be aware of I know that you guys are developing a new comprehensive plan in the township. The county has its own comprehensive plan looking out to 2040. And encompassed in that is many things, but everything revolves around that third column there of connecting communities, looking at a vibrant economy, and the other bullet points there. Part of that is a program called Bike Montco that brings together a lot of infrastructure improvements within the county to improve bike accessibility and safety, whether it be through the development of the trails networks. We've heard a lot about the trails being developed in various parts of the county, and on-road biking. There's a lot around comfort levels of biking on roads, right? So a lot of the townships are looking at working with PennDOT and the other road people who have the road ownership to put in shared lanes or ways to make it safer and more comfortable to use the road infrastructure for biking. So we're heavily connected with that, with the county, and we're going to be doing more work on that with the municipalities in the future. Historically, we've had a bike share program for a number of years, and we're now up to a fleet of 20 bikes at 8 locations. It's a free community program, and so that there are locations around the county where you can take a bike out for free to run errands and use for a commute if you need, or just for recreation. And we work, as I mentioned earlier, a lot on bike safety. We have support for free bicycle helmets, and actually we're going to be at the police department's event tomorrow with their cadets. I was chatting to Officer Rob, and we're going to be supplying the helmets so the kids can do the impaired driving of go-karts tomorrow morning. So this is going to be really fun. The park down the street. Yeah, Real Street. Yeah, yeah. So we approach the bike safety in many ways, and this is a great connection to do that for the cadets tomorrow. So. It starts at 8. I think I'm going to be there like just before 9. They're going to be videoing, and they've got all the waivers. It's going to be great.
So is Officer Flynn going to be there also? From Gwinnett?
No, I don't know. I think he mentioned somebody from Gwinnett bringing the carts up. Yeah.
They have the cart. Yeah, it's great.
Impaired go-kart driving.
Yes.
It's for the kids too.
Oh.
Not really impaired. Virtual.
We were going to do it in the parking lot, but it's too craziness there. We might got to figure something else out. But the kids get in the go-karts and feel what it's like as an adult to be impaired and how to drive. So it's a good way of teaching them not to drink and drive. And it's a great program. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Let's get to the next slide. Yes. All right, so this is just a couple of examples of events we've done this year. We went out to Hatfield Village. It's a very large community out there. And again, kind of like we like to partner. Everything's about partnership in the way we work. So we were partnering with the property owner. We were partnering with the municipality and the police department and providing helmets there. On the right, we have a lady at the Parkside celebration event down in Upper Gwinnett. That was a really busy day. It was so hot, but they provided good refreshments. So it was good. We gave out a lot of helmets, so we're happy. We're going to be doing some events in the fall, and we obviously it's all subject to funding and availability, but it's a terrific opportunity for us to really connect and support the in the municipalities who are members of our agency. That's one of the benefits of joining the organization, is to have these helmet events in your local municipality. Okay, so here's bike share. You can see the locations there on the right hand side. These are kind of all standalone flyers, and I have to say we're working on a new website that should go live by the end of August, where all this information will be available. But right now that's still in progress. So they're all kind of this kind of look of bike. They're an easy to ride bike. You also have some trikes available. All people need to do is to show their ID, read through the waiver, pledge to wear a helmet, and they can take a bike out for anything from a couple of hours to 4 days through the free bike share program. What I don't have on this slide, because it's something that's just evolving, is a pilot bike match program. Because what we found through the bike share program is that some people really need a bike as like for a longer term. So we've connected with our partners in Pennsburg, Bike and Soul, which is a wonderfully innovative bike program, so that we can try and match people who have a need, particularly the frontline workers and some others who just don't have the means to buy their own bicycles, to provide them with a free a free bike for their commutes. We've done that for 3 people so far. And we're looking, we're taking referrals if people need one, to let us know. So that's going to be, we think, have a lot of potential in the future to expand that bike matching. Yes.
Just on this point.
Yes.
Had you talked to, what's the name of the bike shop at 5 Points?
Basic Bikes.
Basic.
They closed.
They closed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Peddlers, I think, is the biggest local one here right now on Main Street. Yeah. Did they close last year?
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
drive by it every day and it looks good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So other transportation options, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of the crux of it, encouraging alternatives for residents and employees to reduce single occupancy vehicles. And we're looking at this from an environmental perspective as well. Derek and I were talking before the meeting. This resonates with a lot of people. Our carbon footprint. What is our carbon footprint, and how can we reduce it? If we car share with a colleague once or twice, if we plan our trips, if we look at taking public transit, can we do that? How do we do that? We have a role here in providing education and support to enable people to make those choices of using alternative transportation. Okay, we do collaborate extensively with Scepter and Transnet. I'm sure we know about Scepter and kind of like the challenges they've had during the pandemic and how they're coming through it. I don't know if you're all aware that they're doing a major look at the way in which they provide service. They're going through their strategic planning process, and right now is the very start of the public input, particularly on the bus routes. It's called Bus Revolution. So these are the kinds of things we want to be able to talk to people about and say, okay, now is a good time, because the system we have in place with Scepter is like 30 plus years old. Doesn't take into account current demographics and emerging demographics and needs of the community. They have some very advanced algorithms that they use to determine where likely routes could be sustainable, but they don't know what's in the pipeline. They don't see, they're working on census data and historical data all the time. They don't see the huge, 309 warehouse. They don't see all this kind of thing happening necessarily on their radar. So, we advocate and are part of that, but we also reach out to our membership and our partners and say, hey, now is the time, or, this is going to be the process. And we need to kind of make sure that we're at the table so that Scepter hears what the needs are.
SEPTA is actually going to come and send a representative to talk to us. Is it next month or the following month?
The following month, because we're not meeting.
We don't
next,
meet.
we don't meet next.
So
Yeah.
September.
Right.
SEPTA is going to come
Right.
and talk to us about the forward-looking
Wonderful.
plans.
Good.
So we're going to want to make sure that, and Lisa and I are going to, partner together and try to get the word out. But I think I'd like to have a lot of representatives from the township businesses and residents come and listen.
Great.
For that.
Right. So I haven't been made aware. Are they reaching out to all the municipalities to do this, or is that?
I'm not aware that they reached out to others, but we've been sort of letting them know the different things that are working through the township planning process.
So that would be
extend the route that they're going and stuff now?
Yeah,
Okay.
because what we're hearing is there's a need for workers and can't school necessarily want to North Henry.
Get further down here now.
It's like the
Yeah.
last mile of
Yeah.
it, because I know a lot of my customers are some of those that take the train and they get off it. Put in there or from there.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was actually something that we discussed as well, and it's, the last mile,
Yep.
right? So that is something that is on our radar, and we're aware of that. And I think Partnership TMA would be good at helping us with that, the last part, get from Colmar to, further down 309 to your place.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of piece where we'd work directly with you and say like, who are the employees? What are like, what are the options for you from the last point of transit to your site? Like, are there any, we didn't, we're a half a mile from Colmar. Our office is half a mile from Colmar, but it's not a marked trail. It's not even on Google Maps, but it is safe to walk it, if you know it. And there's a lot of that kind of like local knowledge involved with it. It's not always that easy to find it out. But so I know that, like what we've been saying to Scepter is, and they're hearing this over and over again, so hopefully they'll be able to enact it. It's like, we have to look at on demand, like more frequent service, like alternative vehicles, like smaller shuttles, on a more frequent basis with flexible routes, that kind of thing, because that old model of the very set limited infrastructure is just that, it's very limited. So I think they need to move with the times and get with the current ways of transporting, because that's their business, and they're looking to integrate a lot more technology and different ways to meet the needs of their customers. Transnet, I guess people have seen the buses going around, etc. Another big partner of ours, because they do multiple programs. They do a lot of private shuttles for larger employers, for example, like the community college. And they also do the shared ride program for our seniors, and medical rides for people who are not driving and need to access medical appointments. But they're a pretty small organization overall. So we're kind of like an additional resource for them to help people navigate to see if
That's kind of the same lines as DART in Bucks County.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did they get funded?
It's multiple streams. So part of it is lottery funding, part of it's county funding, part of it is private pay, part of it is medical, like because it's Medicaid, Medicare, that those kind of streams of funding. So they have multiple contracts for their funding. Okay, electric vehicles. So another option, not helping with traffic congestion, but certainly helping with the issue of emissions and air quality. Today, we have an air quality alert. If you've all seen it on your phones or heard about it. Approximately 20 days each year, the greater Philadelphia area has poor air quality, and we've kind of gotten used to it. It's just kind of like another alert on our phone, but for certain sensitive groups, it's a very concerning health issue. And the fact that we can actually do a few things to mitigate against that are good. EV ownership being one of them. This isn't for everybody, of course, but it is something that we can play a role in assisting, particularly on the infrastructure side. We're not about to get into car dealership kind of situations, but where it comes to kind of installing chargers, again, looking at rebates and grants and ways in which employers can become EV friendly. We have roles and connections and partners who can help with that, because sometimes companies have the will and interest in doing it, but they don't know where to go and they don't know how to approach it. So that's another thing that we are just starting to get into. We're seeing a lot of interest in that, and the whole industry is moving quickly in that direction from a state point of view. So
They saw the federal rate.
really,
This year.
you're not seeing it.
Everything's not there.
You're not seeing it.
Nope.
Interesting. And which models do you have?
They've had the leaf for years.
Yeah.
They're bringing out an SUV this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're saying, like range anxiety is a big issue for people. Where are they going to charge it? If they buy it, where are they going to charge it if they can't charge it at home? Is it going to save any money?
Like go to the dealership. I've seen every customer that never bought a car from us charged our dealership.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm glad we can charge them now.
Okay.
For years, we were paying for their charges.
Okay. Okay.
So Costco is we have conduits already, but when the gas station comes in, we're putting the lines in, but we have to figure out with corporate, because out in California, we don't charge people to charge their car. does that mean that we have to do it here?
Right.
And
Well, you can do it here. We just put one in. But
Yeah.
like I said, a couple meetings ago, it cost us $18,000 just for the charging unit. And then I think we spent another $10,000 in the rest of the infrastructure to put it in.
I had looked into, because we're in the same building, right?
Mhm.
I had looked into what would be involved in putting a charging station out there.
Mhm.
And, yeah, it's
a pricey ordeal.
thousands and thousands of dollars. But instead of, because I have a 5-year lease there, maybe talking to the property management companies, that maybe those are the people that you would want to,
Mhm.
talk to and address,
Mhm.
like Heritage.
Heritage, yeah.
At our location, approach Heritage and say, hey, through this, maybe you can drive, get additional tenants to join you to fill up those empty spaces that they have.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, it's added value, right? It's added value for the customers or the tenants or possibly, and that seems to be it's that strong trending in that direction overall. That's what the figures are showing. So there are rebates available, there are some grants available, there are things that PICO's coming out with. There's an awful lot of change happening to support the expansion of EV infrastructure. And with more vehicles coming on the market, prices overall dropping, yada, yada, yada. We see this as definitely an expanding market and something that we want to be involved with. Okay, the helpline. This is kind of one of our biggest. So we're going into services now. So before we were looking at our programs, this service is funded in part by the Workforce Development Board of the county, because it's open to all county residents and people, employees of the county. So for the individuals, what are their transportation options? How do they get from A to B? Depending on their unique situation, we can offer them a variety of possible options. But there's no, sometimes the options are not good options for people. Let's be honest. There's a very limited number of options. So we can tell it how it is, and we can help guide people through it. But sometimes it's just not a great fit. Transnet is a really great partner for us to work with for many of these calls and many of these people in need. But they've got a lot of kind of qualifications themselves, like whether it be age or medical condition. It's not an individual to individual service. If you're like somebody who just needs to get from A to B, you're really looking at Transnet. So transit is your major piece. So we find a lot of people don't understand how to use transit. They're not familiar with it. They're not comfortable with it. We can talk them through that and exactly explain, where the routes are, where the frequency is, what the safety protocols in place are. Yes, masks are still required right now for drivers and all riders. And we speak from experience that it feels like this, and these are the things you need to look for. The comfort level is key, because a lot of first-time riders don't know anybody who's riding transit themselves. So that is something we work with individuals on. For the employers, it comes back, as another portal to talk to us through, through the helpline, to start this conversation about TDM, travel demand management, either over the phone or through emails or in person or via Zoom. We can connect any which way to get that conversation started. Okay, travel training, focusing here with groups of young adults with autism. We work with the high schools and some other special schools in the area, because these kids need to have their independence post school. They're not going to be able to drive themselves. What do they do? How do they get around? So this is transit training, more immersive transit training, if you will. Last year we went virtual with the training. Prior to that, we've done everything's in-person training. Going forward, we're looking at a hybrid of part virtual, part in-person, and then there's actually a field trip using transit to make them more comfortable. And they've reported to us significantly increased comfort levels of being able to use transit post-training. So, this is for small groups, typically over 6 weeks. We do have some funding to subsidize this, but it's usually like a partial pay service. That's our travel training program. Just a few highlights. I'm sorry, you can't see this very well at all, but just highlights from the first half of the year. We pivoted the helpline, as employees for the most part in the first 6 months were not, fully as back as they are now. So our helpline pivoted very much to help a lot of seniors get to vaccination sites. That was a big, big need. And we worked with the County Office of Senior Services, and in the end, they contracted directly with one of our vendors to pay for the seniors to get to and from the county sites to get their vaccinations. So that was a really great partnership and collaboration, because we said we are getting inundated with calls here. People really want to get the vaccination, but they're reliant on neighbors and friends to ride, and they can't. And it was crazy, those sites were popping up and getting appointments and everything. So it was a crazy, like 2 to 3 months there that we played a role in being able to get this service implemented for the seniors to get to those sites. We started to work with a couple of local employers to look at options, particularly shuttle service. What would it take to provide a shuttle service for that last mile or two for the bigger employers? Cost, it comes down to cost, always cost, who's going to pay? What are the liability issues? All of that kind of thing. We've started to have those conversations with a couple of employers. And relaunched the Better Biking with the helmets, with the helmet giveaways, with the community bike share that had to go on hold last year to the pandemic, and the pilot bike match I mentioned earlier. And we're also talking, throughout this as well, at looking at it through that diversity, equity, inclusion lens that people are, very concerned about, because access to everything is an equity issue. If you're low income, you have fewer options. If you don't speak English, how do you access the transit? It's not readily available on the website or through other means, and anything other than English. It is, but it's not easy to find that out. So, again, we have a role there in trying to make the transportation options as accessible as possible for everyone in our communities. Okay, so who are we? We're a small but mighty team. Although the agency has been around since 1993, our staff is pretty new. I joined in October. Sam joined 2 weeks ago. Lucas is just celebrated his 1 month anniversary. Macy's been with us 5 months, and that's been with us 14 years. We during the pandemic as an agency really pivoted. Our long-term executive director, Peggy Schmidt, who some of you may know, she retired after 22 years. Anthony Johnson, our deputy director, he moved on to a new opportunity up in Wilkes-Barre 2 weeks ago. But we, as an agency, we looked at how are we going to redefine these services and programs that we have. We previously played a lot more of a community service kind of role, which is extremely valuable. However, we want to shift more into this TDM work, working with employers, really working on the economic development piece and how transportation plays a part in that. So opportunity today here to meet with you is fantastic. We're going to be doing a lot more of that and building our knowledge base and our options and seeing where there are points of intersect and possible synergy between the municipalities, between the corridors, between the employers, and saying, right, we see this, now how do we join these dots and meet this need? And our basic communication methods here: phone, email. I've got my business cards if you want them. New website coming soon. Thank you, Alan. There you go. Jason, would you like a card? Thank you. We work with the Chambers of Commerce. The logos weren't up there. Kind of, I haven't mentioned that as well, but that's us.
What Chamber of Commerce, maybe?
We're with the Greater Montco with Pam. Wendy sits on our board. Wendy Custer sits on our board of directors. We're also members with Indian Valley, Eastern Montco. I feel like I'm forgetting one. I think that's it.
No one's as bad as you, Lisa.
I know there's another one that focuses on Greater Valley Forge, but that,
The Montgomery town.
thank
Montgomery County.
Kenny, yes, we don't work with them directly, you know, because we,
Another smaller.
right,
not a big impression. Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So, and, you know, Easton is smaller, but, you know, we work obviously with the Willow Grove
Mhm.
area and the businesses, you know, want to work more with businesses out there. But the Greater Chamber now is so broad, you know, from its earlier times when it was North Penn, Greater North Penn.
And suburban, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, we were really thankful to have that partnership with them, and they just put our helpline flyer out. I don't know if you get their mailings, but
Yeah.
a flyer was in the one of their recent the helpline. So,
Great. Anybody have any questions? We get people to work.
You almost wonder if, to Jason's point, that last mile or the last 2 miles is, there's some sort of combination of having, you know, the bike station
mhm.
at a, you know, a key drop-off location for the bus, right? So the bus comes and drops people off, and then they can pick up a bike to do that
Well, they
last.
do that at the Indian Valley Library, which is right across the street from me. You have, and tell them, you have a bike station
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I saw that.
surprisingly enough, they come running down my sidewalk. And they're using it to get to, the 2 meat places.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Hatfield.
Hatfield,
And something else.
Clemens,
I think it's, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
yeah. So, you know, that for some people, that's an option. Not everybody is comfortable riding a bike. Well, you know, that's not always their choice.
I'm a used driver or something.
Right, right. So that's what,
I
yeah,
only
it
want to
comes
walk
down
in the
to.
Costco parking lot half the time.
So it's that combination of like the comfort levels, the individuals involved, the employer themselves, like what times do you need to get people to work? You know, how many days a week? You know, all of that plays into it, right? And then, you know, we haven't looked at this yet, but even like the on-demand Uber Lyft things, you know, that might be the most viable way with some cost sharing involved. That's what we're working on right now, is kind of figuring that out. It's like option A, B, C, D, E. What could work for you? Okay, but within that, these are the pros, cons, costs, benefits, right? All of that.
And I
Well, there
think,
seems to be a disconnect because Bucks County did the DART up to County Line Road, right? The County Line into Doylestown. But from County Line over here, there's nothing, correct? There's not a thing. No, that comes down. And there is industrial back there. On top of it.
They used to use oh, I wonder.
Really?
Yeah, that's my question.
may
Do we have
have shifted.
statistic? Is there a statistic of how many people have transportation issues? Is there a broad statistic? Like, I wonder what that,
We know that 6% of households in the county do not have access to a car. Okay, so that's 6%. We don't know what the statistic is of where there's a car shortage per household, where you've got 4 adults and 1 car, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the gray area there, if you will. Because we hear that all the time, right? Is they don't have access to reliable transportation.
I wouldn't think it would be, I mean, I could be off kilter, but I don't think it would be a great suburban issue. But the bigger issue lies, and I see it where my husband brings people in from Philly. Like, he had somebody quit this week because they got in a car accident. Now they don't have a car, so they had to quit their job because they have no transportation
Right.
out to Horsham. You know, when you're coming up from like North Philly. So I think that is a problem in getting the workers from the urban areas into the suburbs.
Yeah.
And that's why some of the big employers are putting in these shuttles, or going to pilot these shuttles to see if that works. Because there's a couple of ways to do it. A van pool, where you have a designated driver within that pool. So you're renting a shuttle, you're renting a van of whatever size, and they're responsible to getting their colleagues to work. So that's like a whole other job on top of their job, right? But there's a lot of issues around that. Okay.
They do it in Europe all the time.
But also in Europe, there's a different culture and mindset around shared travel,
Right.
right? It's not generally like people's go-to here as an option. There has to be some incentive and some kind of bridge to get to that. Like, I mean, in England, it was very common for me to carpool with colleagues, etc. Over here, it's not. And talking to people too, it's not at the front of your mind to kind of think about it. So if the employers take that on as part of their green initiatives, right, environmental initiative, or just whatever initiative you want to make it gives people kind of like a reason to try it. And if they try it and like it for whatever reason, now they're only paying half the gas, right? Now the depreciation where it isn't on their car, right? If they like it, then something can become more semi-formal to start with, like trying it once a week, twice a week, and see how it grows. What we see is you can't just try and put in a program easily that's a permanent, right off the bat, 5-day-a-week situation, because there are a lot of barriers to that. A lot of issues of comfort, logistics, what if I have an emergency and have to get home, a lot of these things. Well, there are some things in place to kind of support that. Like there's something called an emergency ride home. We can get funding for, I think it's twice a year, $50 Uber reimbursement for emergency ride home, but it has to be an established carpool that's registered. That's right. So yeah, it's a process. It's a process. So all of that, but all of those are the steps and the foundation blocks we can help put in place to encourage people to try it, and then employers like longer term to support and sustain it.
Well, JBS, with all those employees, you ever see all the cars out there?
There's a company called Globus, and they are an account of one of my large transportation companies I represent in Phoenixville. And they literally are now they have, since coming back post-pandemic, I say that loosely, Jason, they are asking me, they're buying like 5 more buses. For Globus alone, they transport all their employees. And they basically, this company, I mean, they do still do weddings and they have all that nonsense, but their bigger part is employee transportation now. Because people need to get the employees to work. And like you said, it has to be some kind of tax break. There has to be something that you can write off somehow, some way. So, but I just think now it's to the point, it's a whole different mindset. I think the mindset now is we need to get these people to work, because operationally these companies can't continue a regular 9-to-5 workplace without any employees. I'm saying this all the time.
Well, we just found out when we did
Still
Papiano.
It's still in business.
Yeah.
They do, I know they
do the airport, right, they do all that. I don't know if they do
in contact with
They
them?
could be contract.
employment,
Yeah, we had a tenant that was, there were 2 buildings.
and they're shuffling back
They
and
were
forth.
shuffling back and forth. One had to.
Yep. We're looking, like one of Lucas's first jobs is to kind of go out there and scope all of the current providers, because like it's so much change. Like, who's doing what now, and where are our resources? Let's scope that out, and then see what they're doing. But look, that's it.
We're definitely gonna get somehow fit to find people to work, but we found out when we were doing inventory, because I wanted to stay local with all the food aspect of it. But because I did a late shift after 10 o'clock, they're not open. We don't stay up. We only stay up until 8, or we only stay up until 7, or, we're closed. I mean, it's a major issue for restaurants.
And it
Just
isn't here.
major.
It isn't just here. I think
I know it's everywhere.
it's everywhere. I mean, I just came back from Brigantine for the week. You're in the high season of the summer. You can't get food after 9, 10 o'clock. Everything shut. They said we don't have the employees.
Everywhere.
Somebody I know just tried to get an appointment at Massage Envy, North Wales. You know when the next appointment is? The end of September. They have limited staff, limited hours.
Right.
So that's what I'm worried about with the economy right now and the hits we're taking. The hits we're going to take is because if you can't get people there, if people can't stay open, it affects your bottom line if you can operate at full filter.
Right. And I think we have to really get creative, like one-to-one with our employers, and say, like, is there any potential for car sharing with your existing employees, right? Because they're coming here anyway. Now, what would it take for them to detour? What would be possible? What are the possible options here? Now then you've got
people at work that come in from
Yeah.
Philly that car share.
right, but but the employer has to be part of this
Right.
solution to provide, the framework for it to work. Because
How do we incentivize you?
Hmm?
How do we incentivize the employers to have those conversations to?
well, it's the bottom line, like you say. I mean, if they can't attract and retain people because transportation, that could be the motivator. I mean, they're spinning their wheels, spending whatever they're spending on recruitment.
Mhm.
But if they don't address the access piece, actually getting to site, everybody's fishing in the same pond. Everybody's posting on Indeed. Everybody's posting higher wages and incentive sign-ons. It's still not enough because there's a real fundamental barrier here. And that's
And to your point, it's across county lines, right?
Right.
So
right.
it's not just from Bucks into Montco, it's from
Montco into Buck
Philly up to.
and into Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And out of Philadelphia.
So, the shuttle bus option, that could be a great option if you need to get a relatively large number of employees from one place on a route to another place for the start of a shift, right? But for a lot of businesses, that's not the model.
Not mine, I mean,
Yeah.
I too am struggling to staff my new location and trying to get an input, but I mean, I have a few, like, a typical shift for me is like 3 people, 4 people, and take all over me. Kind of arrive at that. For me, more of it, like, is the customer. Like, when we're trying to have like a program to get people interested and have, groups come, sure, if there was an more easy shuttle from one of the train stations to our business, take the fact that people be able to get them.
Yeah. Plus the fact of drinking and driving.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
that, I know, it is a concern because, we stay in close contact with the police department. This isn't like Easton or Doylestown Borough where you can, hop bars and just walk around, even though you can get charged with public intoxication depending on what you do. This is more.
You got the quick.
You have to drive. That's what Seth was saying, because he's from Easton. So they go in, they Uber it into town and then they carry on and Uber it back home. There's really not a lot of transportation up there available at all. But he was saying here, you have to, where are you going to walk to here? You're not in Montgomery Township. You have to drive to get to almost everything. Unless you're living in the Homewood Suites or the Staybridge, you can walk over to Costco. You know what I mean? But seriously, so if Jason was in a situation where when you're actually, that's still Montgomery Township where you're at. It's county line road that takes it to Bucks County, right? Because you're not,
But
huh?
I said hence the name County Line Road. But I do get a lot of, there's a vast strip of houses behind my business, and when you get people in, a lot of people walk.
To you, yes, because you have the strip back there, but you happen to be lucky with that.
But
But then,
to your point, and until you said it, I didn't realize, I think I know the path that you're talking about, but to get from our offices up to the Colmar train station,
There's nothing.
there is a trail.
it's a trail.
It's a hidden trail. It's not on, even on Google Maps, it's not there.
You mean a walking trail?
A paved trail
It's back
Through the-
behind the
through the park.
Works back trail.
Yeah. Go through the park, out the other side. It's all paved, and it's sidewalk all the way up to the station.
So
Wow.
that's something, I think that might be an opportunity where for someone who wants to walk, right? We're not dealing with a access to a vehicle, or even a self-propelled vehicle, bike or anything like that. But how do we get the information out about, walking trails?
The deer across the street.
So
Oh.
jump over.
There's still a lot to be done for walking in Montgomery Township. I mean, I live the wedge between 309 and Cow Path, which is less than a mile from my business, but walking there.
Oh, no.
I
You're
have to
taking your life in your
I have to
hands.
walk across 309 at some point, but, I do it on occasion, not often, but if it was better walking trails. for.
And that-
That might be.
And that's what a lot of the
That's a good point,
township, a lot of the township, a lot of the municipality comprehensive plans now are looking at the walkability, like looking at the crosswalks, looking at the, the lights to cross. And making and encouraging and developing this, what they call active transportation, walking and biking infrastructure. Because for a lot of people, that is a choice. They would make that choice if it was safe to do so, right? But without that infrastructure in place, it's hazardous, frankly, to do. in a lot of cases.
PennDOT's gonna be ripping up 5 points for the next 2 years. Have they incorporated any kind of pedestrian consideration of getting pedestrians across 5 points? I haven't seen the plans.
I'm not sure of the PennDOT plans. Gilmore Associates did present the pedestrian study before meeting a few weeks ago. But again, that's just a study of potential places for walking paths.
But what we find a really key part of this is public engagement. That they have to show that the residents and employers demand for this because of the costs involved and the maintenance involved. So if they don't see a cost benefit of doing this infrastructure investment, it may not happen. And so getting the word out on that, and again, the timing is critical, is saying now we're doing this and we're looking at this and we have this, is this a concern? Who's concerned about this? And getting that feedback, because we've also probably seen examples of where things have been put in and then they're not being used.
Right.
Because it hasn't been a comprehensive, thought through, linked plan necessarily, but somebody's had a good idea, but it hasn't been part of the full picture. Now, when they're doing these comprehensive plans, it is being part of a bigger picture, and then part of a bigger picture within the county, because the county, as I mentioned before, in their overall plan, is saying this is critical for the health of our residents, of our businesses, of our future, for different perspectives. So, and then the county themselves, they can leverage other funding. They can work with the municipalities. It all kind of feeds together.
We definitely know it's a clean air problem, because remember how blue the skies were when nobody was driving?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
not now.
Yep.
No. I used to be able to get down 309 with no problem at all. Yeah, okay. Now you have to leave another 20 minutes early. And then trying to get back up, Yeah, that's rough, man. Like I'm skidding around trying to find all kinds of back ways so I don't have to be on that road. It's craziness.
I mean, I would just ask if people could let your networks know that we exist. Number one, we
Right.
know we're not a well-known nonprofit. We somehow managed to skip over the mission slide that says our mission is to expand and enhance transportation options. Number one. Number two, to ease traffic congestion. Well, that's a pretty that's a big mission of 5 people. But then to educate and engage our communities to learn about the issues, environmental impacts, and land use, etc. But really, the core of this, is the expanding transportation options. That's what we're really going to be focusing on in the short to medium term. So let people know we exist, see how we can help. We don't have budget to put on shuttle buses or anything like that, but through our partnership, we can at least kind of see what could be done possibly. And if, even if things aren't immediately solved, it's something for the future to build on in the planning.
I appreciate you coming out and
Yes, thank you
talking
so
about
much.
this. I think between this discussion today and the September talk with SEPTA, I think that gives us as business owners a good foundation to have these conversations with other business owners, with our employees as well, and not keeping you guys a secret.
Right.
Yeah.
Other organizations.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome.